Good afternoon and welcome to the first session on how to use the new English textbooks for classes 1, 2 and 3 prepared by the SCRT and Education Department. I am Larissa from SCRT and with me is Dipendra. Hi Dipendra.
Hello Larissa and hello everyone. In this hour of lockdown and social distancing, we can still talk to each other despite all the distance we have. Welcome all to the radio show.
Thank you, Dipendra. Dipendra and I are members of the English Textbook Development Team, and today we are both here to talk to you about how to use the new English textbooks in your respective classes during the academic session. Many of you might have wondered, why do we need new textbooks? Well, as you are aware, SCRT Sikkim and the Education Department regularly undertake revision of textbooks for all the subjects. The new textbooks are a step towards making our textbooks more relevant and pedagogically more effective. Dipendra, would you like to tell our viewers our plan for the next 1 hour?
Yes. Before we start further, let me tell you about how we will continue with this talk show for today. First, Larissa will briefly describe about the background of the textbooks, the approach, the objectives, and so on. After that, I will discuss about the first section of the textbook in detail. So, Larissa, let's start with your talk.
Thank you. Right. Okay. When you look at the new English textbooks, you will notice that a lot of emphasis has been given on the use of English in the familiar context of the children of Sikkim. All of you know that a child's first concepts and the learning come from the child's engagements with his or her immediate environment. So, in the new textbooks, we have tried to link English with the day-to-day experiences and the home languages of the children. For example, children regularly observe packets, wrappers, and labels of various things they use at home. This can easily be part of the print at school. These could be used for talking about things in their home languages and introducing vocabulary in English. Please note that while learning a new language, children may use words or sentences of their home language when you give them the new English textbooks. This is a step towards learning to communicate in English. As a teacher, help the child to make a smooth transition from the home language to the target language. If you read the teacher's page, you will see how the tasks are presented for such a smooth transition. We know that children have a lot of experience with things around them, like water, plants, pets, food, toys, friends, and so on. While preparing the new textbooks, these were considered as themes for teaching English from classes 1 to 5. The chapters of the books have been constructed thematically. This means that a theme forms the basis of a chapter. These themes are representative of the children's world, their environment, their interest, and their everyday experiences. Because by the time children come to school, they have constructed some understanding about the immediate world. So for example, in class 1, we have a theme on water, which is a part of the child's everyday environment. In class 2, we have a theme on my family and friends, relations which form a part of the child's day-to-day life. In class 3, we have a theme of I wish, which highlight a child's everyday feelings like wants and desires. As these themes are intimately related with the lives of children, and they have a lot of experience around these themes, they can easily think and talk about these themes. This ensures talk by children, which is central to language teaching. The textbook content also includes customs and tradition that are familiar to the child. So for instance, in class 3, we have a poem called Kantur. Kantur, as we all know, is the indigenous piggy bank. Poems in local languages also form part of the textbook. So we have a Nepali poem in class 1, a Newari poem in class 2, and a Gurung poem in class 3. Of course, these are also in alignment with the chapter themes. The objectives for having a book that is thematic and contextual is because when children's world is represented in the textbooks and is a part of the teaching learning process, children feel accepted, and this helps in developing positive relationships and participation. This also becomes a bridge between the child's world and the school world. The new textbooks have tried to embed or integrate the principles and objectives of education for sustainable development proposed by the United Nations. All of you know that education is essential for the achievement of sustainable development. Education for sustainable development is particularly needed because it enables learners to take informed decisions and act responsibly for environmental integrity, economic development, and a just society for present and future generations. You will be glad to know that Sikkim is the first Indian state to embed education for sustainable development goals in its new textbooks. You may wonder how this apparently difficult concept of education for sustainable development proposed by the United Nations has been embedded in the new textbooks. Well, in the new textbooks, some of the content relate specifically to the physical environment, to issues around healthy food, water, landslides, waste, caring for animals, birds, recognizing that some are endangered, etc. Other content focuses on the social and economic aspects of life. This content also includes narratives of peaceful relationships, learning ways of communication that are peaceful and respectful, and learning to share. Thus, the lessons encourage children to care for and respect the natural environment and people. It encourages children to think critically and creatively about what is happening in the local as well as the global community, connect with the community, and to take action for improving it. Let me cite a few specific examples. In fact, the section Let's Explore in the text is centered on this very idea. For instance, in Class 2, under the theme of When I Look at the Sky, there is an activity. In the activity, children have to visit local shopkeepers to see if they are using plastic bags. They then have to talk about them or how bad plastics are for the environment. And then they have to distribute paper bags, which they will make in the class. So, in the process, the students are therefore not only taking their learning outside the classroom, but are also actively contributing towards a healthy environment. The section Picture Fun includes questions that provide children an opportunity to think locally and beyond. Dipendra here will talk about this a little later. Another important inclusion in the textbook is the alignment of the content to the learning outcomes. NCERT's document on learning outcomes was introduced in 2017 for elementary schools, and we have aligned our textbooks to it. The learning outcomes basically define the new curricular expectations and pedagogical processes for each subject and class. The approach to language learning in the textbook is a holistic one, which means it is not limited to only listening, speaking, reading, and writing, but moves beyond. That is, thinking, observing, talking, inquiring, and imagining. For instance, in the textbook activity, where children have to look at a picture and talk about it, they are not only talking, but are also observing, thinking, inferring, and predicting. For instance, in Class 2, the chapter When I Look at the Sky, there is a picture. In the picture, we see a man helping a young boy to fly the kite. We also see a young girl crying. Now, the questions that follow encourage the children to look beyond what they see and asks the children why the father is helping his son to fly a kite and why the girl is crying. So what we notice here is that the child is not only talking about what she sees in the picture, but is also thinking and making inferences. In the textbook, you will also notice that a reading activity may be followed by a drawing task or an oral discussion. or a writing activity is preceded by talking about a picture and so on. This is because in real life, the skills of listening, speaking, reading and writing do not follow in a continuum. Activities in the text allow opportunities for creative thinking and writing also. So for instance, in class 3, after reading a poem called Magic Shoes, children have to write a poem about what they would do if they had magic shoes or magic socks. Also, an attempt has been made to connect language with everyday experiences. So for example, in class 3, under the theme of rivers and mountains, there is a poem on rivers. The poem follows with a question. Have you seen a river in the rainy season? Is it safe to go near a river during a rainy day? Why? Another activity in class 1, under the theme of wonder and magic, there is a writing activity. The writing activity is based on a picture of monks turning prayer wheels. Now, if you look at these two activities, both images contain experiences that are common to our children. A river in the rainy season and monks in the monastery. Activities in the textbooks allow for language learning not only inside but also outside the classroom. So for example, in class 3, under the theme of mystery and magic, there is an activity where children have to collect pictures of animals that are extinct, and they also have to collect information, which means they have to search for and read other materials, talk to friends and family. Grammar in the textbook is contextual. The focus is not on rules and definitions, but usage. So for example, in class 1, under the theme of water, the grammar task includes children having to look at a picture and make 2 lists. List 1 of what they see people doing in the picture, and list 2 of the things they see in the picture. So, though the objective here is to understand what nouns and verbs are, it is done in a context. Well, dear teachers, you must have realized by this time that you have to use new pedagogical strategies for transacting the new textbooks in English. What are they? Please give the children in your English class enough opportunities to talk in English, both by herself and in groups. Please don't insist on accuracy during the first few days. At the initial stage, fluency and spontaneous use of the target language is more important than a few ready-made correct sentences. Please create a non-threatening environment in your class so that children are encouraged to question, inquire, think and be creative. Please involve the children in activities if it is conducted in pairs or groups. In fact, you will notice that most of the tasks in the books require the child to discuss, share, tell or talk in English. Finally, please go through the teacher's note and all the sections of the textbook that you are going to use and find out how you have to use these sections to make the learning of English a joyful experience for your learners.
Larissa, we have now discussed so much about the background of the textbooks. We've also looked at the overall approach of the textbooks and how they can be used in classrooms. Should we now move to the next part of our show and look at our books more closely?
Sure, we can do that, Dipendra. But before that, I would like to once again inform our listeners that you can call into our number 20117 and the code is 03592 with suggestions or queries or anything else related to our talk today. We will start accepting calls as soon as we finish the talk.
सिक्किमका सम्पूर्ण शिक्षक तथा शिक्षिका वर्गलाई म भीम ठटाल, डाइरेक्टर प्राइमेरी एजुकेसन अनि डाइरेक्टर समग्र शिक्षाको तर्फबाट नमस्कार। यो लकडाउनको समयमा हाम्रा शिक्षक शिक्षिकाहरूले विद्यार्थीसम्म पुग्ने विभिन्न साधन मार्फत जति पनि कोसिस गरिरहनु भएको छ त्यसको लागि हामी तपाईहरुलाई धेरै धेरै धन्यवाद दिन्छौं। अहिले यो लकडाउनको समयमा रेडियो मार्फत, टिभी मार्फत, हाम्रो सिक्किम एडुटेक एप मार्फत अनि विभिन्न व्हाट्सएप ग्रुपहरुबाट तपाईहरुले जुन प्रकारले शिक्षणको क्रमलाई जारी राख्नु भएको छ त्यो अति सराहनीय छ। यहाँहरूलाई एउटा जानकारी दिन चाहन्छु म कि सिक्किम सरकारको शिक्षा विभागले तयार पारेको जुन प्राइमेरी स्कुलको लागि प्राइमेरी टेक्स्ट बुक छ त्यो टेक्स्ट बुक तयार भएर आइसकेको छ र यो टेक्स्ट बुक सिक्किमको एससीआरटी समग्र शिक्षा, युनेस्को अनि अजिम प्रेमजी युनिभर्सिटीको तत्वावधानमा तयार पारिएको हो र यसलाई चाहिँ अब हामीले स्कुलमा पढाउनु भन्दा पहिला शिक्षक शिक्षिकाहरूले यसलाई कसरी चलाउनु, यसको प्रयोग कसरी गर्नु त्यसको बारे प्रशिक्षण लिनु अति आवश्यक छ। तर लकडाउनले गर्दाखेरि कुनै एक ठाउँ आएर प्रशिक्षण लिनु सम्भव नभएकोले गर्दाखेरि हामीले यो प्रशिक्षण पनि रेडियो मार्फत नै चलाइरहेका छौं र यो किताब कसरी चलाउनु पर्ने त्यसको बारे आकाशवाणी गान्तोकबाट सोमबार, बुधबार र शुक्रबार दिउँसो 12 बजेदेखि 1 बजेसम्म प्रशिक्षण प्रसारण गरिनेछ। अप्रिल 22 तारिक इंग्लिशमा मिस लरिसा लेप्चा अनि उहाँका सहयोगीहरू र अप्रिल 24 तारिक ईबीएस का लागि मिस दिकिला लेप्चा अनि उहाँका सहयोगीहरूले आकाशवाणी गान्तोकको रेडियो मार्फत यो प्रशिक्षण दिनुहुनेछ। हाम्रा सिक्किमका प्राथमिक शिक्षक शिक्षिकाहरूको लागि म यो जानकारी दिन चाहन्छु कि यो नयाँ पाठ्य पुस्तकलाई कसरी चलाउने बारेमा अब आगामी दिनमा कुनै अरू प्रकारको ट्रेनिङहरू गरिने छैन। त्यसर्थ यही ट्रेनिङलाई नै तपाईहरूले जहाँ पनि हुनुहुन्छ जसरी पनि भए पनि रेडियो मार्फत तपाईहरूले सुनिदिनुहोस् र यो प्रशिक्षण तपाईहरूले हासिल गर्नुहोस् भनेर म विनम्र निवेदन गर्दछु। धन्यवाद।
All right. Let's come back to our textbooks now. When you turn the pages of the book, you will notice that there are many colorful pictures, both big and small, in the first section. This section is called Picture Fun. Each theme in class 1, 2 and 3 textbooks are divided into 6 sections. Picture Fun is the first section in all the themes. There are many pictures here and there are also many different language activities to follow. Pictures are visual. They are visual language. They help to create meaningful context and learning becomes easy.
But Dipendra, since pictures are only visual, can you explain how they help children learn the language? Also, how do we select good pictures for picture reading?
Good questions, Larissa. Children love to look at pictures and draw them. When pictures are attractive, they become very effective tool to teach not just the language but many things as well. When you look at our textbooks, you will notice that all the pictures and the illustrations are attractive and meaningful at the same time. They are contextual and aligned to the learning objectives. Let children see the big pictures and let them enjoy the details. Big pictures accommodate a lot of variety. Imagine the scene of a market. There'll be so many things to see and so much to talk about. Pictures also lead to a lot of discussion. They play a very significant role in language learning, so we have included lots and lots of pictures in the book. Small and discrete pictures in many English primers which are so easily available in the market do not excite or inspire children at all. So we have big pictures. Since we are talking about primary classes, the pictures should also be familiar to children so that they can relate. They should be able to connect their own experiences to what is shown in the picture. For example, a scene where children are playing a game or making a mess at home, which they generally do.
Yes.
A good picture stimulates the mind. So, we should ask different types of questions to help children express what they think or how they feel. Children may also have many queries in their minds. Give them space to share their thoughts with you and with the rest in the class. Pictures can also be used to develop critical thinking skills. I will discuss about few specific examples from the textbook later. The activities related to pictures are interesting and enjoyable, so children actively participate in them. Pictures also come in various forms like a comic strip or a big landscape. But the pictures for the young learners are not very abstract and they are not complex at all. Big pictures demand a lot of interaction between the children and the teacher. And by now, we very well know that a language classroom is always a noisy one. Let them make noise because that's where learning takes place.
That was a very detailed explanation, Dipendra. But I'm sure listeners will have a pressing question. The question is, will children in class 1, 2 and 3 be able to express themselves in English?
In the beginning, we should expect our children to only use English. We should also not force them to use English and only English every time. As I said a few minutes back, pictures are visual language and children can use any language to talk about them.
But another question arises here. If children keep using the local languages, how will you think they learn English?
Yes, now that's a tricky part. It's alright when children in class 1, 2 and 3 initially talk about the pictures or respond to your questions in their local language. There is no harm in this. They won't be knowing so much of English, but they're always capable of using the local language to express their thoughts. Now, this is an important skill we need to develop in language classrooms, the skill of expression. A good picture reading session will always help children to develop thinking skills like observation and comparison. I'm sure that every one of us here will agree that our job as teachers is not just to teach English, math or any other subject. It is also to help children develop their lifelong skills and become more independent and rational. As children gradually begin to learn new English words and expressions, they start using the language when they do the picture reading. Now, as English teachers, we should always take the initiative to use a few English words or expressions while talking about pictures or asking them questions. We have to encourage children to use some amount of English too. A word of caution here: we should not force children to use English. We should be patient and let children make errors along the way. They are natural and always a part of learning. Children in class 1, 2 and 3 are not expected to use perfect English. Another important point here is we should not use only English. The whole process will become meaningless and children will not understand anything at all. This is how they begin to develop a fear for English language. We should always take support of the local language, but without a word-to-word translation.
I'm sure listeners will find these tips very useful. Sometimes the English classroom, as we have seen, looks more like a Nepali classroom because we as teachers also forget that we are teaching English, or we struggle to introduce English and don't know where to begin.
You are absolutely right. This is a very common problem in many of our classrooms. So, our homework as teachers is to go through the picture beforehand and identify the key words and expressions that we would like to introduce through the picture. We can then use those English words and expressions in our teaching. Remember, since it is a primary classroom, we should use lots of action and gestures as well. We have to become more expressive. The picture, actions, gestures and the support of the local language will definitely help children to meaningfully pick up the English that we use. They will understand and slowly start to use English as well.
That's right. Now, is there any particular reason for keeping picture fun as the first section?
Yes, there is. pictures are visual. In fact, pictures are visual language. You can look at them and talk about them even if you do not do that in English. This motivates children to talk, which is very important for a language classroom. The contents of each section are related to them. When we spend more time with pictures in the beginning, we actually allow and encourage children to develop curiosity and interest for the stories and poems to follow later. Now, let us take a moment to talk about the important learning outcomes which are achieved through picture reading.
Before you begin, can you briefly introduce learning outcomes? What do they mean? How do they help us in the classroom while teaching English?
Sure, Larissa. Learning outcomes are the desired or the intended consequence of any learning content which is carefully planned and designed. It is related to the expected learning outcomes of the children. They are specific objectives. Now, these objectives can be achieved when students follow all the activities related to the theme over a term or year. We plan our lessons to achieve certain learning outcomes. We assess our children on regular basis to check if the learning outcomes are being achieved. The learning outcomes we follow have been prescribed by NCERT in 2017. When we look at the picture reading section in Class 1 textbook, ORCID, the intended learning outcomes as prescribed by NCERT are, let me read them out. Associates words with pictures, names, familiar objects seen in the pictures. Next is, interacts with peers and the teacher based on the inputs provided by the picture. Now, since we are discussing about learning outcomes, I also want to mention about the Education for Sustainable Development Goals, ESD goals, as part of the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. They aspire for peace through peaceful relationships, inclusion, diversity, sharing, and caring. The themes of our textbooks try to develop values like empathy, compassion, care, and understanding in various ways that are appropriate for the age of our learners. So we need to understand here that the learning outcomes and ESD goals should always become the guiding principle behind our pedagogy as teachers. Our new textbooks are aligned to these learning outcomes and ESD goals. Each specific learning outcome and ESD goals are very clearly mentioned in the textbook for every theme. I would like to request now all our respective teachers to kindly read the teacher's page which is given at the end of every textbook. Understand the objectives first and plan your lessons accordingly. Classroom lessons should only begin after going through all the objectives first.
That helps a lot, Dipendra. Can you give us an example from the textbook to show how the learning outcomes of picture fun can be achieved?
Okay. Let's talk about the picture fun section from Theme 1 in Class 2 textbook. The name of the textbook is Cherry Blossom and the theme is My Family and Friends. If any of our listeners have the textbooks with them, I request them to turn to page 13 of this textbook. For the rest who do not have the books with them, don't worry. My words should be enough for now. Let's look at the picture. The picture is like an explosion of stories on the page. On one side, you will see an apartment building with different families doing different activities of the day. A boy is sweeping the floor. A mother is scolding her children. Similarly, a girl is washing the dishes while a father cooks. You see a dog and a cat curled up on the floor. The scene outside the apartment building is equally exciting. There's a house being repaired in the background. Someone is washing utensils near the tap. A few children are playing while the older ones go to school. The traffic police is trying to manage the rush. Oh, what a picture! There is so much to see and so much to talk about. Imagine how much will our people, our students, enjoy this picture. Now in the classroom, let children open their textbooks, spend some time with the picture. Ask them to pay attention to every corner, every person, every little detail. You can give children specific instructions to draw their attention to the whole picture. For example, you can tell them to look carefully at the cat playing with a red ball. If you have a smaller class, you can ask children to sit around you in a circle and look at your textbook for some time. You can hold the textbook in front of them and point at different people in the picture. After some time, let children look at the pictures on their books. In a primary classroom, actions and movement are very important. Please use lots of actions while talking and move around the class to reach every child.
Dipendra, it seems like you're suggesting that children should get enough time to go through the picture?
Absolutely right, Larissa. We should start asking questions about the picture only after children have thoroughly gone through the picture at least for once. This may range from 5 to 10 minutes or even more, depending on the picture and the class. If children are not used to picture reading, they may need more direction from the teacher. Once the children have looked at the picture for some time, please encourage them to describe what they see. You might ask, what are the actions and emotions of the characters? Or, what do you think will happen afterwards? Or maybe a question like, have you seen something similar in your life? Some questions for this picture also could be, what is the girl doing in the balcony? Which game are the children playing in the background? There could be some inferential questions like, why is the mother angry with her 2 children? Or, what time of day is it? How do you know? There is a man in the picture who is cooking something. Who do you think is he? You can use such questions to initiate a general discussion in the class. You can also use the sample questions under the Let's Talk About the Picture heading in the book. For example, the last question in page number 11 says, you can see people working together to repair a house. Do you also work together with your friends and family? When? Please remember here, the textbooks can only have limited questions. So you have to design more questions for each picture. The more you design, the better it is. When it comes to children, they usually respond in their local language. Doesn't matter. As long as they respond, it's okay. You can encourage them to use a few English words like dog, man, girl, boy, grandmother, house, plants, ball, tap, etc. Or you can also use action words like scolding, repairing, sweeping, and cooking can also be included. Since children are in class 2, they are already familiar with many of these words. You can use the words in sentences to give them an exposure to a complete sentence in English. For instance, 2 girls are going to the school. The girl is chasing the cat. There are plants and flowers in the balcony. Now, these meaningful conversations will help children to practice their vocabulary, learn new words, and use them appropriately. An important point I want to add here is that the conversations are not simply for developing communication skills in children. You should write down the English words and sentences on the board and read them aloud, one after another. It is a good idea to point at words which are written on the board to draw their attention. Children can also be asked to label the picture, make a list of things they see in the picture, or speak short sentences about different characters or actions they observe. Sometimes you can ask children to draw pictures which are related to their immediate surroundings or their neighborhood. You can help them label the picture or caption it. This can be a fun writing task. The picture is also an excellent opportunity to talk about how people live together and sometimes fight with one another. The same picture again can show how we can work together and love each other to live in harmony. The activities and the tasks that I have just discussed now, and also the ones which are given in the textbook, are all aligned to the learning outcomes and ESD goals. These objectives are clearly mentioned in the teacher's page given at the end of the textbook. Please consult them. The learning outcomes related to Picture Fun for this theme mentions that learners should be able to verbally express their opinion about characters and the story in English or home language. The big objective for this section is, it says that children should draw or write a few words or short sentences in response to poems, stories, or pictures. Similarly, the ESD goals for this theme suggest that children should recognize the value of family and community. There should be respect for different occupations, and one has to recognize the importance of every community member. If you remember, these objectives were very much part of all the questions and the method we discussed about just now. They were the guiding principles. But please remember, do not confine yourselves only to the questions given in the textbook. As a teacher, you have all the liberty to guide your children. We could have more questions like, do you help your parents at home? Or what games do you like to play with your friends? Or maybe who cleans your classroom? And so on and so forth. In class 3, the questions become more complex in nature, not just in terms of language, but also the idea. The same picture we discussed can also be used to ask a wide range of questions, ranging from a very basic to a very complex one. By class 3, children are expected to start framing their own questions. Use them to make picture reading even more rich. Please respond to their questions sensitively. Encourage them to express their feelings, talk with their friends, and accept the viewpoints of others as well. Please try to use pictures from the Picture Fun section as much as possible. There is so much you can do with pictures. You can develop language skills, thinking skills, and you can also help children to develop universal human values through pictures. Please plan your use of English in advance and motivate children to use as much English as they can. But please do not force them. If children make mistakes, do not immediately jump in to correct them. Give them multiple opportunities to listen to English or read the language more. When you do this, many of the errors are self-corrected by the children themselves. Remember, errors are the signs of learning, and guidance with encouragement are the keys for correction and understanding.
Thank you, Dipendra. That was very informative and relevant, and I'm sure it will definitely be useful to our teachers listening in. We would like to inform you that next week we will talk to you about the section on story time and I Can Read.
हजुर श्रोता, यति दिल सुन्दै हुनुहुन्थ्यो शिक्षा विभाग सिक्किम सरकारद्वारा प्रायोजित टिचर्स ट्रेनिङ प्रोग्राम, जस अन्तर्गत आज सुन्नुभयो अंग्रेजी विषयमाथिको परिचर्चा।
Good afternoon.